Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers. He's Keith Pompey. I'm Marc Farzetta. Bleacher Report comes out with their top 100 all time. The greatest, the best, the most talented, all that. And Joel Embiid is ranked number 66 on that list. What do you make of that? We'll talk about that and more, as well as other Sixers on this list, brought to you again by Bleacher Report. This is Locked On 76ers podcast on the Locked On 76ers YouTube channel.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Keith, I didn't even see this list. You sent it to me yesterday. You said, what do you think about Joel Embiid? I said, what do you mean? I just think, what? And you're like, number 66. I go, where, what, when, how, who? And you said, on Bleacher Report's top 100 list, NBA players all time. You know, when I get a number, Keith, of assigned to a player in Philadelphia, I always go, all right, is this, like anybody, is that right? Is that wrong? I got to say, 66. For the criteria they use, which is basically talent above all else, not necessarily overall accomplishment, 66 kind of feels about right for Joel Embiid. How about you?
You know, it depends on what the criteria was, right?
Right.
You know what? When you look at it, I think I'm just thinking of the 76ers fan, right? So the 76ers fan was like, okay, well, Joel Embiid is number 66, but Nikola Jokic is number 17, right? And if Nikola Jokic is number 17, but then you have Dwight Howard, number 52, right? But then you also have Moses Malone, number 21. And people are like, Sixers fans think that Joel Embiid is a better player than Moses. However, when you look at all the things that these guys have done, like, Dwight Howard being a multi-time defensive player of the year, Nikola Jokic being a 3-time MVP, the same thing for Moses Malone. Like, Dr. J is ranked number 20th, right? But Moses Malone is the guy who took the Sixers to the promised land. They don't win the championship if it wasn't for Moses, and he became the finals MVP. So when you think of all those different things and you see how these guys have more accolades than Embiid has, right? Embiid has a couple scoring titles. He won MVP. He was, for the most part, he was second team All-NBA for the most part behind Joker. So, yeah, you really can't argue with it when you factor in. But when you first look at it, you're saying to yourself, hold up, man. Allen Iverson, number 36. Barkley, number 25, all these other guys, how in the world is Joel Embiid way back there? But the stats don't lie. The accolades don't lie.
I gotta say, when I try to get into lists like this, I often think of two words that I always think misappropriated. Okay. Mm-hmm. Greatest and best. Yeah. For me, I've seen, better players than people that I consider to be the greatest. But the greatest have no ifs. If they weren't hurt, if they weren't injured, if they had this wide receiver, if they had this point guard, if they had this center, if they had this pitcher, if they had this third base, whatever. When I think about all the sports, I think about the word if. The best, they had a lot of ifs, but they themselves were extremely talented. Them themselves might be the most talented, top 10 talents in the history of their sport, but they had a lot of ifs. The greatest, they removed the ifs, and they were just great, and they accomplished championships, multi-MVP awards. That's what I think of the greatest. So when I think of Nikola Jokic versus Joel Embiid, you're talking about one of the greatest all-time centers, greatest. But when I talk about a best type of scenario, I look at Joel Embiid and all the things he can do on the basketball court, put a team on his back. And when I look at talent and talent alone, that's where you can talk about the best. Joel Embiid is up there with the best of all time when it comes to talent. And when you just break it down to talent, 66, oh my goodness gracious, Keith, that's terrible. That is way too higher ranking needs to be lower on that chart, meaning closer to number one. But the injuries, and even the report itself, Bleacher report, when they looked at Joel Embiid and all the numbers involved with him, the unfortunate thing that they do point out, and it's the first line for Joel Embiid, it's the injuries. The injuries are what factor in the most with Joel Embiid. And that's what the scary thing is. And I think most Sixers fans right now understand that. And when we talk about Joel Embiid, it's one of the first things that we mention, not because we want to, but because we have to. That's a part, unfortunately, of his legacy after focusing so much on legacy. But the first line, it's starting to seem like Joel Embiid's career will best be remembered for having injury-ravaged bookends on either side of a brief, dominant prime. Exactly. This is the first line on this list. That first sentence, Keith, is what costs him any higher ranking than I'll even go 50, even if you want to put him in the NBA's top 50 of terms of all-time talent. That line right there costs him a number of spots.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's what it is. Embiid would probably be top 5 when it comes down to potential. And what I mean, you know what I mean? Like before injuries, because there are certain guys on this list, that you say like, yo, hold up, I thought they were better. How come they're like, okay, right. Prime example, Wilt Chamberlain's number 9. But when you factor in his accolades comparable to other, besides individual things, comparable to other people, you put Bill Russell ahead of him because Bill Russell won championships and more so, and Kareem and people like that. But you are correct. If we based it off of guys who were the most athletic, who had the most potential before they were injured, it would be Joel. Like Bernard King would be ranked higher in that category as well, So right. Yeah, there's no argument from me when it comes down to it.
And isn't that part of the tease that's just so frustrating? Like I try to be, and we've talked about this before, I don't reach to be negative. I don't reach to be positive. My only goal is to be real. And when I watch Joel Embiid, I am amazed by this man, like just amazed. When you talk about a healthy Joel Embiid out there on the court, it's dazzling and it's captivating is what it is. And I remember the buzzer beater. I can't remember the team it was against, but he basically was Steph Curry that night. We always have heard from Joel Embiid, whether it's Tyrese Maxey or James Harden, whoever, hey, who should I be tonight? Should I be Dirk tonight? Should I be Steph Curry tonight? Should I be Jordan tonight? Whatever. This was a Steph Curry type thing where he dribbled behind his back, spin move around the foul line, knock down the buzzer beater to win the game. And it's like that just got ran by a 7-footer that was acting like he was 6'3". Like it's just amazing the things you could see from him on the court. All the comparisons, especially on the offensive end side of things. You talk about the footwork is Hakeem-esque. It goes hand in hand with that. And that's what you see from Joel Embiid. And that's part of the tease. That's part of the frustration that when you see him out there on the court, there's really nobody that can D him up. In times, he's got to go against Jokic one-on-one. He dominates those matchups. And that leads again to the tease. That makes you go, man, what could have been? And I unfortunately think that when it all is said and done, we think about what could have been. We talk about what this team should have been in the Joel Embiid led era, and not, unfortunately, what it was, which was a team that drastically underachieved. And you're also looking at this list. I'll talk about just the centers here. Kareem, by the way, I love getting the praise that he got, number 3 all time on this list. I love that. Bill Russell, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Wilt Chamberlain are in the top 9, top 9 when you just talk about centers. Hakeem, who I mentioned, is number 12. Jokic, you mentioned, is number 17. David Robinson is at number 19. These are just the centers, Keith, yep. Not including anybody else. And you think about where Joel Embiid could be if even he didn't miss half the games he missed so far in his NBA career.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part because, like, you can't make any – and I get it where people say, let's look at the Joker and look at the dominant games that Embiid has had against them. But also you got to point out that Embiid has only played against him once outside of Philly. Like, really, once outside of Philly. So, but when you factor that in, and we're talking about, Wilt, Wilt won multiple championships, right? He won, he reinvented the game, right? We talk about David Robinson. Like, he's the guy that put the Spurs on the map. And then he, Tim Duncan, he's the guy that continued the legacy. We're talking about, MVPs. We're talking about NBA champions. I mean, all these guys, they all ahead of them. They've all won titles, all of them, So, Bill Russell, I mean, he's a quintessential role player, but a winner. The Boston Celtics didn't win anything until Bill Russell arrived. So that's the knock, man. Like, that's the thing. When you look at Embiid, great individual player when healthy, but he goes down right now as the only MVP to not make it out the second round, which is crazy to sound. To have that type of, to have that on your back, that moniker. But it is what it is. So I don't have a problem with it. Even down to Moses Malone, like he took the Sixers to the promised land. We talked about a 3-time MVP, a 13-time All-Star. Moses was the man. He was the man.
Mm-hmm. The comparison in baseball always gets made with Pete Rose is the guy that put the Phillies, over the hump, got them over the hump and all that. Like Moses Malone was that guy for the Sixers. From my understanding, I can't say I experienced it, but from my understanding, that's what he was. But then also to break it down to more recent terms, he was also like a Jimmy Butler. Like, how do you let this guy go? This is the guy that made sure this team was over the hump. And he left, or he was traded somehow. This is a guy that basically told Charles Barkley to his face, you're fat and you're lazy. Start taking your talent seriously. And he turned his career around, obviously, to a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest ever. And also another guy on this list at number 25. I will always scratch my head going back. If I could have been around for the true reaction of Moses Malone being traded away from Philadelphia, I would have loved to have been on a microphone in that time and taking people's comments, calls, whatever, about what the outrage must have been throughout the city of Philadelphia when that man was allowed to walk out of Philly.
I mean, I was a little bit older than you. I'm a little bit older than you, so I remember it.
It's a couple years, by the way.
I remember it from like my uncles. Yeah, my uncle's like, what? For who? For what? I mean, but back then, the Sixers were doing some crazy things back then, dude. It was management. I mean, people forget they got rid of Brad Gardy. Yeah, like, dude, I'm telling you, it was weird. I mean, it was weird. I remember they drafted a guy because the owner worked him out at his house.
Yes.
It was crazy.
Was that Ruland? That was Katz Ruland. I remember that story.
I want to say, was it Kenny Payne or someone? But, dude, it was bad. I mean, like, it was bad. Like, even, like, I hate to say it. What's the dude, the 7-foot Mormon dude? Oh, my God.
Sean Bradley?
Yeah, like, you draft him over Penny Hardaway. Like, I mean, dude, they used to do some crazy stuff back in the day. So right. It's like you look at it now and you're saying stuff and you're like, but you forget, like, yeah, that Moses thing was ridiculous. The only trade that I will have to say that a lot of people look back on and they say, you mean y'all got rid of Barkley? Barkley, his press conferences used to be crazy. Like after the game, he was like, yeah, I'm going in. Like he would and I'm paraphrasing, but he would say, how do you expect me to win? And he would name these teammates. He would just throw them under the bus. He was just like, get me out of here, get me out of here. It was kind of sort of like how like Jimmy Butler left a certain way, James Harden left a different way. Like James wanted out at that particular point, because of his relationship with Morey. But the Barkley thing was one of those things. They would put the camera in front of him and he would just destroy teammates. He would just destroy them. So you had to let him go. I mean, you just had to. People were upset, but you had to let him go. And I think they were upset with the front office because Barkley was right. It was like, look who I'm playing with. But at the same time, he knew how to get traded, the things that he was saying.
Yeah.
I was destroying them.
When we come back, I'll round up the top 10 for everybody. I know I listed the centers there that were in the top 9, top 10, but I'll give everyone, including what everyone really does care about, who was at the top or who was number 1 on this list. We'll talk about that when we return. Also, later in the show, who breaks out from this current 76ers team? We've talked a lot about the big 3, but who is the guy that could break out in this upcoming season? We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. This is Locked On 76ers podcast on the Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. How about FanDuel? You guys taking advantage of all FanDuel has to offer? I hope so. Summer sports in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling, huh? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. How about that? I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh. I had Christopher Sanchez in the Phillies game last night, over 6.5 strikeouts. Thank you very much. He got 12. I've been using FanDuel to track all things like that. It's easy to use and fast payouts, so you can spend that money. Makes it even regular season games that much more exciting. Whether you're watching something play into the ninth inning, whether you're watching the same game parlay, following that throughout, FanDuel is the place to be. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Rounding out the top 10, Keith, I'll give it to you like this, all right? So I'll get to number one. I'll break it down. And I got to say, when I look at all these people on the list, I do think this is right. And I do love that a lot of the centers are getting the love, because a lot of centers, unfortunately, get skipped over when you start talking about the greatest of all time. At number 10, Steph Curry comes in at number 10. At number 9, Wilt Chamberlain. Seems extremely low for a guy that literally had to change the rules for to make the game harder. Number 8.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I mean, yeah. It seems low. It is low. But I think when we look at it, all the other guys won more titles than him.
Yes.
But he did win 2, though. And the Lakers, to be honest with you, he was like the Moses to the Sixers. For the Lakers, because the Lakers couldn't get over the hump until Wilt got there.
I'll also say that. Let me ask you this question. I'm going to put you on the spot, because I'll give you my answer right out of the gate. I'm absolutely taking Wilt. If you're the head of the all-time draft, what's that?
Yeah, number 1. Yeah, I'm taking him number 1.
Okay. So, like, when I think about Bill Russell, I think about Wilt Chamberlain, and what I know about that argument, like, I don't know anybody that's in an all-time draft taking Bill Russell over Wilt Chamberlain. Like, I don't like that's where you can start looking at great teams, and that's where you can start talking about great individual talent. That's where you can talk about greatest of all time versus best. Wilt, I'll take as the best of the two. But the guy that accomplished the most, it obviously is Bill Russell, and he was certainly set up to win with some pretty good talent around him as well.
Yeah. You know what? Wilt Chamberlain is the best available player, while Bill Russell was the best fit for the Boston Celtics. Because they already had Bob Cousy. You know what I mean? So, like, you know what I mean? Who was the guy? And they had a couple other guys, but he was the one that brought it all together. You know what I mean? He was the one who did that. You know what I mean? So.
No, I got you. Larry Bird's at number 8, by the way. Tim Duncan, another center there at number 7. Then you have Shaquille O'Neal at number 6. Now we're in the top 5. Bill Russell gets into the top 5. Magic Johnson at the top 4. Kareem, number 3. I got to say, for a guy that's got, 6 MVPs?
Yeah.
For a guy that has 2 finals MVPs? Yeah. For a guy that's a 6-time champion? This is like a Jordan-esque type of resume we're putting together here. Oh, also, the all-time leading scorer. This guy's hook shot was the tush push before the tush push. Like, the unstoppable play was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's number 3 on this list. Number 2, LeBron James. And number 1, Michael Jordan. So that, I'll say right out of the gate, I'm very much in favor of the top 2 on this list. I like Jordan before LeBron, or better than LeBron on the list.
If it was my list, it would be, sorry about that for cutting you off, but if it was my list, it would be Jordan number 1, Wilt Chamberlain number 2, or and that's like interchangeable, and Kareem number 3. Like, no offense to LeBron, but these guys, like, Kareem won all those titles with the Lakers, right? But before that, he won the first championship with the Milwaukee Bucks. You know what I mean? Jordan did his damage. I think, LeBron is the creator of the super teams, right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? He did stuff like that. And I get it. I know he's been in the league a long time and he's done a lot of things, but I don't think he's better than Wilt Chamberlain. I don't think he's better than Kareem. I mean, and some people might call me a hater and everything like that. I just don't see it. I'm sorry. I'm
sorry. With you.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you. And the other part of it is you talk about the 3-point attempt. I don't know how many 3-pointers did Kareem make? Did he make one in his career?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is sky hooks and foul shots, babe. Sky hooks and foul shots. That's how he got there. Absolutely incredible. By the way, so we just rattled up. I just rattled off the top 10. There's a name on there, or a name not on there, that I know a lot of people might raise their eyebrows over. Kobe Bryant, not in the top 10. He is top 11, getting edged out by Steph Curry. If it was just shooting, well, then sure. But I would, if I had to do anything on this list, I would flip Kobe and I'd flip Steph Curry. And I look, love them both, but I wouldn't give Steph Curry the nod over Kobe. Would you?
You know, that's a tough one. The thing about, I like Kobe a lot. I also like Steph. I guess the difference is, like, when you say Kobe, you'll come to your say and you say, well, who does Kobe remind you of? And you'll say, oh yeah, that's Jordan 2.0.
Right.
Well, who does Steph remind you of? Oh no, there's been no one in the league like him. You know, Mr. Excitement and things like that. And then you say, okay, well, when Kobe was winning championships early on, it was kind of like Shaq was the most unstoppable player in the league. Like, he was unguardable. So it kind of helped that. But then when it came down to the Golden State Warriors, you know, Steph was the head of the snake. So I think I can understand what you're saying. And then you go down and you look at, like, shooting percentages. And for the most part, you know, Kobe's shooting percentage wasn't exactly, you know, as high as people thought. He took a lot of shots.
A lot of volume.
Don't get me wrong, he was a high volume shooter, but don't get me wrong, he was the man. But I think that when you have that argument, you look at it and you say, okay, for a while, he was 1A on the team, 1B on the team, while the other guy was 1A. So I think that's where he gets the nod for that.
Yeah. And I mean, he won before he had KD there, and then KD became obviously the star of that. But yeah, he's gotten in his back pocket, and then Kobe did it on the back end without. I mean, I will say this, like, not that I was ever, like, rooting for the Lakers ever in my life, but the fact that Shaq won without Kobe and Kobe won without Shaq, at least they got their rings without each other. I felt like that was a good way to kind of put things to bed. Like, yes, you're both great. Like, you're both amazing. And I'm glad they got their rings in that regard, because it wasn't like the Sixers were competing later in their careers, obviously. All right, when we come back, I do want to ask you the question. Iverson, number 36. Last one I'll ask you about. Iverson at 36. He was sandwiched between Bob Cousy at 37 and Steve Nash, two-time MVP at 35. About right for AI?
I think he's better. So, hold up. Steve Nash was ahead of him?
35.
Nah, bro. That's a slap in the face. I mean, that's a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Steve,
I'm surprised he wasn't in the top 30.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. The thing about it is, when you look at him, you know, he was another guy who was a volume scorer, right? Volume shooter. But at the same time, he elevated the 76ers. I mean, the claim to fame to him, to me, was how, you know, he took that team full of role players to the NBA Finals. And they did lose to the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. But when you look at him, you know, he'll always have a special place, especially in Philly, because that was the last team to get out of the second round, right, that he had. And, you know, we're talking about AI, listed at 6 foot, probably like 5'9", 5'10", right? And he did what he did. For him to be ranked behind Steve Nash, and I get it, Steve Nash won 2 MVPs. In one of them, they said, like, Kobe was robbed, right? They felt like Kobe should have won it.
Right.
You know, to me, that's like a slap in the face to AI. That's a slap in the face.
All right. I'm with you. I am with you. I do not think that that's crazy at all. The other thing with AI, yeah, you mentioned the team he was on. I mean, they built a team that just understood that Allen Iverson was the offense and 4 other guys better D up. And to quote Sonny Hill, I pass them the basketball, but they always pass it back. All right. All right. When we come back, I do want to ask you the question, Keith, about who breaks out. We've talked a lot about the big three. We've talked about Quentin Grimes. Looking at this roster as assembled, is there one guy that you think Sixers fans need to keep an eye on for the upcoming season? We'll talk about that when we return. Quick break. This is Locked On 76ers. And just like that, when we look at this roster right now, Keith Pompey, as assembled, include Quentin Grimes, don't include Quentin Grimes, whatever. What is this 76ers? What can we expect from someone that might break out? Who could break out on this 76ers roster?
You know, that's a great question. I mean, that's a good one. At first, I was going to say, well, maybe Jared McCain could break out, right? But then you look at it and you say to yourself, he broke out last year before he was injured, right? To me, maybe a guy who, and I think for the Sixers, when we look at Quentin Grimes, you already say that Quentin Grimes, he showed what he could do last year, breaking out if he comes back, right? You know, Kelly Oubre is a guy I think that could have a pretty good year playing with all these other guys, going underneath the radar, right? But, you know, a guy who I think that they can get, and basically because of need and because of certain things, believe it or not, I think Trendon Watford could probably have a solid season for the 76ers. So I think that it will come down to Oubre and Watford. And the reason being is because I feel like, you know, if they're saying that Watford is extremely athletic and, you know, Maxey indicates that they may possibly move him off the ball at time and have Trendon out there running point forward. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be something that they're going to do consistently, but to me, I'm trying to find a player who is completely different than all the other guys I mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, they wouldn't break out because they already broke out. I think that I'll have to go with Trendon.
See, here's what I love about you saying that, because you were the one that highlighted their in-game interview during the Summer League game where Maxey talked about getting a Draymond Green type player. And I'm like, well, damn, that's one hell of a name to put on Trendon Watford. Okay. But then you also look at the idea of getting a rebound and being able to push immediately. And the Sixers really haven't had a point forward. I mean, really, the only guy I can think of is obviously Ben Simmons, but I don't think Watford has the speed of a Ben Simmons on those outlets. So for me, that's also high praise. But that also represents more than anything, Keith, a philosophy change. And the only philosophy change we've really talked about with the Sixers is kind of running things more through Tyrese Maxey. But what we haven't talked enough about is a philosophy change when it comes to on a team that doesn't have a traditional point guard other than Kyle Lowry. You're talking about maybe getting back to that type of offense where you're getting that instant push from a guy getting the rebound.
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about a guy, you know, again, it's going to be tougher for him now because he's going to be playing in what the Sixers hope are going to be meaningful games. You know, like when he was with Brooklyn, it got to a point where he got the ball in his hand because it's what they were tanking. They were trying to just figure things out. And the thing is, you figure out this is a team that had a lot of cap space, right? So you think about it, like if they felt like he was a priority or someone that they could build with, why didn't you throw more money at him? Why is he coming to the Sixers? Right. So to me, but I do think that, you know, given all them other guys we talked about and the way that Maxey was talking him up, that he will at least get an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. The only thing is, does Nick Nurse seem like a guy? He seems to me to be a guy that's very much stuck in his ways or just has a way he likes to do things. Do you see enough of a transition being made with him as the head coach where they would stray away, not because of injury, but because of actual strategy? They'd get more focused on a point forward or Maxey being the main guy.
You know what? I think that here's the thing. I think they catered to Maxey in the beginning because they didn't have any other options, right?
Right.
I feel like now when you look at this team and you see how players are injured, and I think that, Nick Nurse is smart enough to know that you may have to change a little bit because he saw how with Maxey bringing up the ball a lot when everybody was out, how teams basically were trapping them, blitzing them. He couldn't really do anything. So I think it would change. The one thing that I will say that gives me confidence in Nick Nurse being able to adjust is if you look at those Toronto Raptors teams towards the end of his tenure, they were loaded with power forwards, and they were basically athletic, interchangeable power forwards. You look at Pascal Siakam, who became an all-star. There was times where Pascal Siakam was running point forward. Now, again, they did have Fred VanVleet, but at the same time, we saw a lot of times where Pascal would get the ball and he would initiate the offense. And you say to yourself, well, what position does he play? And then, they had some other guys who were basically the same. I mean, you look at OG, like Obanova. I always butcher my man's name, but
Obanova,
Obanova, yeah, that dude. So
I know, man. It's tough. I get it.
So you look at him and you say to yourself, you're like, okay, well, is he a 3? Is he a 4? No, he was a 4. So to me, it's like to a point where I think that with Nick Nurse, he's smart enough to know what he has. And if you're athletic, especially in this era of positionless basketball, that he can adjust. Now, again, we're also comparing Trendon Watford, a guy who, was undrafted just like Fred VanVleet was. So that's not saying that he can't attain these things and achieve greatness. But we're comparing him to some of the, this era's top power forwards and interchangeable players in OG and Pascal. I mean, there's a reason why they're both, centerpieces, so to speak, on the teams that they play for now.
I'm going to get 2 comments in here real quick because we are live. Reggie just says, what's the chance Watford starts?
Right now, I don't see it. I mean, he could start. He really could. But if you're asking me that if everyone is healthy, I don't see it. And the reason why I don't see it is because at this particular time, you have to show me that Paul George can still guard threes and wing players, right? From what we saw at the end of last season, I feel a little bit more comfortable putting a 6'8" Paul George at power forward over a 6'9" Trendon Watford. You know what I mean? And having maybe Kelly play the 3 or have him flip-flop. So at this particular time, I do not see him. Now, again, if there's injuries, if he's not, Paul George can't go, if Joel Embiid is injured and doesn't go, then I think that you got to go with the next best thing. And they may feel as if that Trendon Watford in the starting lineup may be that next best thing.
I'm going to put it to you like this. I'll answer this question from Reggie by saying, in a vacuum, he doesn't start because everybody's healthy and everything's great. But with that being said, he's probably going to end up starting a bunch of games this year. I'll say that. Duke Holiday, how you doing? Real question. What have you seen to make you confident in Maxey as a number 1 option? Because he's missing something, he's saying. When I talk about Tyrese Maxey, I don't talk about him like he's some clear cut, he's the number 1 guy. It mostly comes down to, as a compliment to Maxey, I want to keep challenging him because he has only improved in his NBA career. So that's the compliment. That's what gives me confidence that I at least want to give him the opportunity to. But the main reason is the unfortunate part, which is a lack of options. That's unfortunately what it comes down to. Joel Embiid not being available, possibly Paul George not being available. So who's going to be the next guy? Who else of the group are you selecting to be the new number 1? I think it's Tyrese Maxey, and there's a big gap after that. So that's why I show any confidence or even mention, Keith, the idea of him being a number 1 guy.
Yeah, to me, in the perfect world, Maxey isn't the number 1 option. I think that when we look at Maxey's best season when he was an all-star 2 seasons ago, it came on the heels of when Joel Embiid was just unstoppable. I believe he was averaging 36 points in 35 minutes and doing everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's the season he scored 70 points. We all know about that. And I feel like Maxey was a huge benefactor of that, right? So, you know, last season, there was no Joel Embiid, there was no Paul George. And I felt like at certain times Maxey struggled because he really didn't have any help, right? So to carry an offense. The one thing is, am I 100% confident that he can do it? No, I can't say that I am at this particular stage. But the one thing that I'm confident in regards to Maxey is his work ethic and his ability to improve, you know, each and every season. So where he may not be that person just yet, I think that he's going to keep fighting until he is. Now, it may never come, right? But at the same time, I think that in order to have that happen, I do believe that for that to happen, the 76ers will have to take the ball out of his hands, get a traditional point guard, a guy who can put Maxey in great spots, and have it to where it was like when they played with James Harden, where Maxey got out in space, he did what he had to do. But, you know, while his game in clutch situations at times has struggled because of his like being, I'm not saying one-dimensional, but a certain style of player without any help, I do think that, you know, he is going to continue to work on those things and he will get better.
Fair enough. Keith Pompey, Inquirer.com. By the way, I love that Jordan was number 1 on the list, and now I'm just seeing it that you're wearing a Jordan t-shirt.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about it. But can I say one thing before we go though?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to just go back on this AI and Steve Nash argument, and this is why I want to do disrespect, because when you look at these guys, you can say, you know, yeah, Nash, you know, okay, so here's, you can say like Steve Nash was a 2-time MVP, but we're going to go there. So he was a 2-time MVP, a 7-time All-NBA guy. He was an 8-time All-Star. He's a Hall of Famer and a member of the 75th anniversary team, right? He played in 18 seasons. Now we'll go to AI, who played in 14 seasons. Hall of Famer, 11-time All-Star, a 4-time scoring champion, a 3-time steal champ, a 7-time All-NBA. He was a member of the 1997 All-Rookie team, the 1997 Rookie of the Year, a 2-time All-Star MVP, a 1-time MVP, and a member of the 75th anniversary team. And he did all that in 4 less seasons than Steve Nash. So to me, it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, come on now. You know what I mean? If Steve Nash won like multiple championships and did all that other stuff, I could see it. But outside of that, man, I don't. Come on, man. That's a joke. It's a joke.
Do you think it, in all honesty, do you think it's a knock on him that when he went to Denver, and that was a really good team with him and Carmelo Anthony, but do you think it's a knock on him that he didn't do more?
I mean, I guess it could have been, you know, it could have been, but also we look at Steve Nash and his last season playing for the Lakers. A lot of people forget he played for the Lakers my first season in the NBA, and he averaged 6.8 points, right?
Yeah, he was done.
Come on, man. Like, you know, he played for the Lakers. So when we look at his Lakers career, they were like supposed to be the dream team. Remember, he goes to LA, everybody's excited. You know, they had him, they had a couple other guys, and they're talking about, yeah, we're going to win the title. And like the first year, he averaged 12.7 points in 50 games. And then he started off 50. And then the second year, he only played in 15 games and he averaged 6.8 and he started in 10. So there were games he didn't even start. So, you know, like, yeah, you can make a case for like, yeah, you know, he left and he goes to Denver, which was a bad fit talking about AI because he's a ball dominant guy playing with another ball dominant guy. He's also in Detroit and you hear about what happens there. But at the same time, dude, he played in 14 years, and several of those years were with those squads, right? So that messed it up, his scoring average. But all the things that he did as a 76er, nah, I can't see Steve Nash being ranked ahead of him. I'm sorry.
The other part is Kobe's 11, Shaq is 6, and that's the team that he still was able to at least win a game against in the finals. That's kind of good too. That's not exactly that's not a detriment to AI. His name is Keith Pompey, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you guys are reading on Inquirer.com, your 76ers beat writer, Inquirer.com. My name is Marc Barzetta. Hey, Locked On people, I'll be back with you guys tonight for Locked On Phillies postcast after the Phillies hopefully sweep the Boston Red Sox. Yeah, that's right. Break out the brooms against the Bo Sox. I'll be on Locked On Phillies YouTube channel tonight after that one. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Barzetta. Thanks so much for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. As for your next listen, Doug, Matt, and Hayes got you covered with your Locked On NBA podcast for up-to-date contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to know to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Keith Pompey, Marc Barzetta. We'll see you guys tomorrow.